Tonight on CFTK-TV News, more politicians dropped out of the BC election in the wake of BC United's pullout. We'll have a closer look at the frontline battle against BC's toxic drug crisis, and a convicted serial killer recently faced a sentence.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Baslett. Here's what's making news in the Northwest and beyond today. Earlier today, Terrace Mayor Sean Bouitosh, Stikine MLA Nathan Cullen, and several representatives from the Kasan Society gathered in Terrace to make a very consequential announcement. The announcement in question was that a new building housing 22 second-stage homes to protect women and children leaving gender-based violence called Ellis Place is now open in Terrace. This comes as part of a $19 billion housing investment made by the BC government, which has seen around 80,000 such homes either delivered or get underway with its construction since 2017, and Terrace has gotten 375 of those homes. The Kasan Society will be the ones managing the building in addition to giving supports to those who really need it. CFTK News will have more on this announcement at a later date. Earlier in the week, a single vehicle accident that happened about 25 kilometers west of Terrace on Highway 16 in the evening resulted in the death of a 35-year-old man from Prince Rupert. As of right now, the incident is still being investigated by both the BC Highway Patrol as well as some traffic accident reconstruction experts from the RCMP. The accident also resulted in the actual driver of the vehicle that crashed having to be taken out of the vehicle by 5 Terrace firefighters and eventually was transported to a hospital where he has since been described as being stable. The BC Highway Patrol is also seeking out anyone who might have dashcam footage of the incident, and for those that do have such footage, you are asked to call the BC Highway Patrol at 250-847-3233. 2 veteran politicians called it quits a day after Kevin Falcon abruptly pulled BC United out of the provincial election. Emotions remain raw for candidates who feel abandoned by their own party, and some aren't keen on suddenly running under the BC Conservative banner. Penny Daflos now with more.
2 years after Kevin Falcon booted John Rustad from his party, he abandoned his dream to be premier and threw his support behind the Conservative leader.
On his very worst day, John Rustad would be a far better premier than David Eby on his very best day.
The move blindsided Falcon supporters and MLAs.
I didn't leave my party left me.
They found out BC United was imploding when the public did, despite standing by Falcon through a name change and dismal polls.
It's not the first time that you've seen a major party be decimated. There's probably a lot of reasons.
Former cabinet minister and interim BC Liberal leader Shirley Bond is pulling out of the election altogether. So is Todd Stone, but he's now backing his one-time rival.
The BC Conservative caucus will need the right mix of experience and new blood.
Ultimately, it was difficult to maintain 2 right-of-center parties.
There's little doubt the next week or two will be rocky for the centre-right.
You can't have this kind of shotgun wedding between parties this close to an election and not have some fallout from that decision.
Do you feel that this was an inevitable development?
No, I wasn't sure how this would play out.
As Rustad took a victory lap with multiple media interviews, there's considerable angst among centre-right voters.
Momentum is everything in politics, as it is in sports.
Who want to rein in government spending while being progressive socially.
You're describing me. I mean, I got into politics largely to make a difference on big issues like climate change.
I think when people see some of our policies come out, some additional policies come out, I think those sort of people will see that we are a party that is across the spectrum.
The NDP is already targeting Rustad with its first attack ad.
He's a career politician with a record of costing you more.
And even sharing old BC United clips.
The party that has candidates that equate vaccinations with Nazism and apartheid.
Suggesting the ghost of Kevin Falcon will hover over this election, even though he's now out of the picture.
Coming up next, we have an update on the Handy Dart strike situation in Metro Vancouver. Welcome back. Unionized Handy Dart workers in Metro Vancouver have made it official. Their strike will begin on Tuesday. CTV's Martin McMahon has more on what to expect next week as passengers scramble to find other ways to get around.
The union has handed in 72-hour strike notice to Transdev, the French company TransLink contracts to operate Handy Dart.
Yes, if you're counting on Handy Dart for Tuesday, September 3rd and on, make alternative arrangements, and hopefully we can get this sorted out as quick as possible.
The strike has caught some riders like Sarah Metcalf off guard.
At the very beginning, I kind of I thought it was a big joke, but I'm like, in reality, I'm like, I think it's not a joke.
Workers are pushing for the same rate of pay as handy-dart drivers in the Fraser Valley. In a news release, Transdev claims the offer rejected by the union was comparable, but the union disputes that.
Our members were looking for wage parity. Right now, the Fraser Valley makes $36.09, and their offer starts at $32.68, I think it was. Their offer doesn't even start until July. Our contract ends in January 1st, so there's no raise absolutely at all between January and July.
Well, we've indicated to the employer that we're ready, willing, and able to meet ASAP. We've indicated we'll meet today, tomorrow, whenever. But unfortunately, the employer's earliest date that they proposed is September 12th. We'd like to meet earlier to put an end to this.
The situation means riders like Metcalf will likely see their lives disrupted next week, unless they can find a different way to get to jobs or appointments.
It's basically how it's going to affect everybody, as well as myself. I'm going to have to let my boss know that I'm not going to be available.
While riders like Metcalf will be left to figure out their own way around on Tuesday, HandyDart will continue to provide essential medical rides for those with conditions including cancer and multiple sclerosis. Martin McMahon, CTV News, North Vancouver.
We're getting a closer look at what it's like to work on the front lines of the toxic drug crisis. Outreach workers spend their days connecting with community members and saving lives, but they also bear the weight of losing so many people. CTV's Isabella Zavarisi has that story.
Morning.
The burnout rate is incredibly high, and it's important work.
That's our mission, is to change one life at a time.
On the front lines of the toxic drug crisis is Harold Melbourne, who spends his days bearing witness.
The drugs that are out now are so powerful and so addictive.
Melbourne would know. He struggled with addiction and used to be homeless, living on the downtown east side after his marriage fell apart.
I ended up self-destructing completely, burning everything to the ground.
He remembers the moment it all changed, after overdosing alone in his room.
In the blackness and in the oblivion, I heard, "Get up." And I opened my eyes, and I was face down on the carpet. I know if it wasn't for that voice that I heard, I would have been a statistic.
The 61-year-old is now an outreach worker at the Union Gospel Mission. He initially came to detox and now works here full-time.
It goes till 4.
He spends his days checking on people who may have nodded out while using drugs. He also saves lives. He sees himself in many of the people he connects with and knows it's his strength. But nothing about this work is easy.
It takes a lot of resilience, a lot of grit.
8 years into the public health crisis, nearly 15,000 people have died in BC, including generations of families.
There was no relative left to bury an 18-year-old girl who also passed from overdose. And that was all because of this crisis.
I don't dwell with the dead, I dwell with the living.
Melbourne says he refuses to lose hope.
Every life has value. Every life has a story. We can't judge unless we walk in their shoes.
Which is why every day you'll find him here in this community. Isabella Zavarisi, CTV News, Vancouver.
From traffic jams to construction, it's not anyone's imagination. Commuting around much of the Lower Mainland is slow, and it's getting worse. And as CTV's Abigail Turner reports, there is now evidence that driving time to the office and then home is at an all-time high.
It's no secret that driving in Metro Vancouver can be...
It's absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, it's quite a mess.
Whichever way you choose to describe it, Statistics Canada says Canadians are once again driving to work, putting us back in pre-pandemic gridlock and, thanks to the housing crisis, longer trips home.
They can have moved to where housing is more affordable. That is one thing that happened. But in doing so, the commute distance, when the people do commute, is longer.
Cities in Ontario hold the top spots for the longest commute times in Canada. Here in Vancouver, we sit in 5th place with an average commute time of 30.5 minutes. Stats show there are an average of 16.5 million people commuting in the country, up more than 500,000 from the same time last year. And we still prefer the comfort of our own vehicles over transit.
Car-dependent sprawl isn't just causing greenhouse gas emissions, loss of time, inefficient usage of all of our resources. It's making us really unhealthy and stressed out and unhappy.
Abbotsford Mission drivers experience some of the longest commute times at an hour or more.
There are more people on the road for sure, and especially, unfortunately, with what's happened here recently, it's just a real problem on the west side of Vancouver.
This driver talking about the road closure from the massive crane that toppled onto 41st Avenue and destroyed a 6-story Dunbar building more than 3 weeks ago. The road will stay closed for another week, according to the city.
The damage to the adjacent infrastructure was more extensive than we initially expected.
Another setback for commuters in the area for back to school week.
Whether it's close to home or in downtown Vancouver, you got to give yourself a lot of time to get where you need to go.
And a whole lot of patience and perhaps petroleum. Abigail Turner, CTV News, Vancouver.
Turning to tonight's weather, the north coast will more than likely see showers at plus a low at 13 degrees. The Terracotta area should end up dealing with periods of rain as well as a low at 13 degrees, and the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is expected to only end up getting a few clouds in addition to a low of 4 degrees. On the north coast, the upcoming week will see a sunny day right in the middle of it, but cloudy and rainy days outside of that, plus a high shifting between 17 and 16 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, the week for them will have a combo of solely rainy days and mixed sunny and cloudy days, in addition to a high bouncing between 23 and 20 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the next week or so will consist mostly of just sunny days, but with possibly a few clouds, and the high shall move from 25 to 21 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is utility work, construction work, crack sealing, paving operations, and the Usk Ferry is out of service due to the low river level. Highway 37 has some maintenance, and there is some construction work on the Nishka Highway. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, the federal Conservative leader is said to be trying to cause an early election. Welcome back. For months, polls have suggested that the federal Conservatives would do well if an election was held right now. Now Tory leader Pierre Poilievre is urging NDP leader Jagmeet Singh to stop supporting the Liberals and trigger an early election. CTV's Rachel Aiello reports.
Standing in front of where the Prime Minister enters Parliament, Pierre Poilievre called on Jagmeet Singh to help get Justin Trudeau out of office.
Break the costly coalition with Trudeau to trigger a carbon tax election where Canadians can choose.
The Conservative leader wants the NDP to force a fall federal election by voting to bring down the minority government when the House resumes next month. Poilievre says the Liberal NDP deal needs to end because Trudeau demonstrated this summer that nothing will change for Canadians and they can't afford to wait another year. But going to the polls early would also be to the Conservatives' advantage.
Right now, it would be a crushing defeat for the Liberals and Pierre Poilievre would be Prime Minister.
Through the two-party pact signed in 2022, Singh has advanced policies such as dental and pharmacare, progress his party is worried a Conservative government would put in peril. Responding to Poilievre's pressure campaign, the NDP say that leaving the deal is always on the table, but Poilievre wants to win an election because he wants to cut. The Liberals view Poilievre's push for an early election as a sign that he's getting worried.
I think it's pretty pathetic
that the good news, the good economic news that we are seeing for Canada and Canadians, the Conservatives feel is bad news for them.
Poilievre is accusing Singh of keeping Trudeau in power long enough to qualify for his pension, something the Conservative leader has already secured. The NDP leader will be eligible as of February, well ahead of the June expiry of the Supply and Confidence Agreement. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
Heartless, evil, and absolutely vile. That's how victims' families describe convicted serial killer Jeremy Skibicki. The 37-year-old was back in a Manitoba courtroom for his sentencing hearing after being found guilty last month of first-degree murder in the deaths of 4 Indigenous women. CTV's Alexandra Holick has the latest.
Convicted serial killer Jeremy Skibicki sat quietly in the courtroom Wednesday, as family and friends of his 4 victims spoke about how his actions have changed the course of their lives.
He's an evil monster. He has hurt this family, tore it apart, ripped our souls to pieces.
An evil monster who was found guilty of murdering 4 Indigenous women: Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and an unidentified victim given the name Buffalo Woman. During the trial, the court heard Skibicki preyed on these vulnerable women at homeless shelters before inviting them back to his apartment, where he killed them, defiled their corpses, and disposed of their remains in a garbage bin.
He's a homicidal necrophiliac.
Skibicki was handed 4 life sentences with no chance of parole for 25 years, which means the 37-year-old will be behind bars at least until he's in his 60s.
This will never be enough for me. What he did to those women, he deserves a lot more than what was put on him today.
Skibicki will be serving the sentences concurrently or at the same time. Consecutive sentencing isn't an option in Canada after the Supreme Court ruled against it.
I think that we just might have to change the legal system when it comes to consecutive sentencing.
In his decision, Court of King's Bench Chief Justice Glenn Joyal addressed the serial killer, saying, "Make no mistake, Mr. Skibicki, because of the current state of the law, the only available sentence that I can impose today will regrettably not adequately reflect the gravity of these offenses." Meantime, families of the victims say they're shifting their focus to a search of the Prairie Green landfill, where the remains of Harris and Myron are believed to be.
Until we get her home, I don't think we will have some kind of closure. So the landfill is very important.
2 men facing terrorism charges for allegedly plotting an attack in Toronto have been in Canada for years, with one even securing citizenship just a few months before his arrest. In the first hearings into the matter, members of Parliament heard how the 2 men slipped under the radar. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
On the hot seat about terror suspects who slipped through the Canadian immigration system, the Public Safety Minister presented a timeline of what officials knew about when Egyptians Ahmed El-Didi and his son Mustafa entered Canada.
All Canadians deserve answers and transparency.
El-Didi landed at Pearson International Airport in early 2018 and sought asylum. He was granted a work permit. In 2019, he applied for permanent residency and was flagged for additional CSIS and CBSA screening. El-Didi got PR in 2021 and became a citizen just this spring. His son Mustafa was initially denied a study permit in 2019, then submitted a refugee claim a year later after crossing into Canada from the U.S. by land. Mustafa was given refugee status in 2022. Both men were arrested at the end of July after a tip from a foreign government. Dominic LeBlanc says they were both monitored for a month before the RCMP made their arrest.
Our government will continue to prevent, detect, disrupt, and respond to any suspected terrorist threats and activities.
But the opposition wants to know why the government didn't know about a 2015 ISIS propaganda video that allegedly shows the father cutting off the limbs of a prisoner.
Why our security agencies didn't know about this, or why they weren't alerted, or why our immigration department wasn't alerted this before he got Canadian citizenship.
Security officials say they didn't know the video existed when their immigration files were approved.
Independent of the criminal investigation, the CBSA, subsequent to media reporting, went and obtained an instance of this video from the dark web. It's part of the review. We're asking ourselves, questions about the procedures.
Ahmed El-Didi and his son Mustafa face 9 terrorism charges, including conspiracy to commit murder on behalf of ISIS and aggravated assault for an incident dating back to 2015. before the duo arrived in Canada. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
And now we turn our attention to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is down 1/10 cent, the price of gold is down $32.70, oil is down $2.36, natural gas is down 1 cent, aluminum is down $38.50, in Toronto the TSX is up 118.69 points, the Venture Index is down 0.01, in New York the Dow Jones is up 228.03, and Nasdaq is up 197.20. Still ahead, controversy has arisen from the latest project of a famous YouTuber. Welcome back. A miniature village has appeared in Toronto. It's the set of a high-profile YouTuber's latest creation. Mr. Beast, who has more than 300 million followers, has come to Canada for a new reality TV show. But as CTV's Adrian Gobral reports, Beast Games is being shot under a cloud of controversy.
The only way to catch a glimpse is from high above. This sprawling village built on the grounds of an abandoned airport is now the film set for the biggest reality competition TV series ever.
It's insane, right? It's insane.
1,000 contestants are taking part. The winner takes home $5 million.
This scale is massive. Like normally reality TV in the US, the participant count taps out at about 24. So Netflix was pushing it when they did 456, and now we're talking about 1,000. The logistics of managing all of that, I don't know if there's anyone who works in television who really knows how to do it.
The project is a joint venture between Amazon MGM Studios.
Go ahead and start the timer.
And YouTube celebrity Jimmy Donaldson. Known as Mr. Beast, Donaldson has the most subscribers on YouTube, with more than 300 million. His channel is known for videos that center around extravagant stunts, charitable giveaways, and competitions. A production set for the series has been built in Toronto's North End. Surrounded by a red wall and security, aerial footage shows a large cement tower, palm trees, a soccer pitch, and what appears to be 12 single-story dwellings. Previously, the production was filming in Nevada, where concerns were raised by contestants.
All of these issues of like really bad conditions, people worried about being trampled, people not having access to food or not getting medications on time.
We've learned a Toronto company is in charge of producing this portion of the production. And when it comes to reality shows, those working here tell us the sheer scale makes this the largest in Canadian history. Filming is underway and expected to last up to a month in total. We reached out to Amazon for comment. They've yet to respond to our email. Adrian Gobral, CTV News, Toronto.
A Tim Hortons location in Vancouver's Chinatown neighborhood has removed most of the furniture from its dining area. The coffee shop is moving to a standing room style of service as other stores in the city make changes to their own to discourage theft. Some convenience stores have locked up their soft drink and dairy fridges, and gas stations are removing squeegees from the washer fluid bins, with signs advising customers to enter the station to request the squeegee. Retail strategist David Ian Gray believes anti-theft measures will only increase in Vancouver until the problem begins to recede. That's all of our news for now. From everyone at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin. Thanks for watching.